Just what are your plans for the off season and possibly playing or just doing individual workouts?
Yeah, I mean, probably take a little bit of a break here, just for maybe a week. I don't really want to lose a ton of the stuff I've worked on, and just trying to get my body back to full health. There's some USA.
The internet has been on fire for the past 48 hours. And if you've been paying even casual attention to women's basketball, you already know why. Rumors exploded that Caitlin Clark, the most polarizing star the league has ever seen and the rookie who rewrote the financial math of the WNBA overnight, had finally reached her breaking point. Whispers spread that she was done playing nice, done absorbing the hits, and ready to walk away from Indiana, from the system, or from the league itself. Headlines flew, leaked offers surfaced, and speculation ran wild across every sports timeline. After a season marked by hard fouls, open resentment, and a league culture that seemed uncomfortable with her dominance, Caitlin has now made a decision that's sending shockwaves through the sport. But is this really an exit? Or is it something far more calculated? Because while casual fans are arguing about jerseys and destinations, a much bigger power shift may already be underway. To understand why this moment matters, you have to revisit the most chaotic rookie year ever. To understand why this so-called new team storyline carries so much weight, you have to rewind to the moment Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA and realize this was never just about basketball. From day one, her rookie season felt less like a debut and more like a survival test. Every arena she walked into carried a different kind of tension. The crowds were louder, the cameras were tighter, and the reactions from opposing players were sharper. Veterans who had spent years talking about growing the game suddenly looked uncomfortable with what that growth actually looked like. Caitlin wasn't just another rookie trying to earn her place. She arrived as a walking spotlight, and that spotlight made people angry. The physicality told the story before the words ever did. Cheap shots disguised as hard defense. Hip checks that came late and high. Fouls that went beyond sending a message and crossed into punishment. It didn't feel accidental. It felt intentional. And the more attention Caitlin drew, the more aggressive it became. There was an unspoken message circulating the league: if she was going to be the face of women's basketball, she was going to pay for it in bruises. Fans noticed immediately. Clips went viral not because of normal contact, but because of how often the whistle stayed silent. The Kennedy Carter incident during the Chicago Sky game became the flashpoint. The ball was dead. Caitlin was standing still, waiting for the inbound, and Carter blindsided her with a shoulder that looked ripped straight from football. No basketball play. No plausible excuse. Just impact. Caitlin hit the floor, the arena erupted, and the league was suddenly forced into an uncomfortable conversation. Was this jealousy? Was it resentment? Or was it a warning from the old guard that stardom came with consequences? The league tried to smooth it over. Commentators framed it as competitiveness. But fans weren't buying it. They saw what it was. And more importantly, they saw how little protection Caitlin received afterward. That lack of protection extended beyond the court. As Caitlin's jersey sales exploded and fever games began moving to larger arenas, it became impossible to ignore her economic impact. Television ratings spiked. Merchandise flew off shelves. Teams that once played in half-empty gyms were suddenly selling out NBA buildings. Caitlin Clark wasn't just contributing to the league. She was carrying it. And yet, the response from the establishment felt cold. Almost resentful. She was generating millions, changing travel standards, and attracting new audiences, but she still felt like an outsider. Then came the Olympic roster announcement. And that's when everything shifted. Despite leading the league in assists, despite being the most watched player in the sport, and despite clearly being the biggest draw women's basketball had seen in years, Caitlin was left off Team USA. The explanation was experience. Seniority. Chemistry. But to fans and insiders, it felt personal. It felt like a deliberate attempt to keep her from overshadowing veterans who had waited years for their Olympic moment. The message was loud even if it wasn't spoken. No matter how dominant she was, she would have to wait her turn. The optics were brutal. Team USA played in front of half-filled arenas overseas while Caitlin Clark stayed home, rested, and prepared for another season of record-breaking attention. The irony was impossible to miss. And that moment became the seed for the rumors that followed. Because once it was clear the league wasn't going to fully embrace her, people started asking the obvious question. Why should she keep sacrificing herself for an organization that seemed uncomfortable with her power? That's when the offers began to surface. Quiet at first. Then louder. While the WNBA debated how to manage Caitlin Clark, other organizations were ready to pay her what the market said she was worth. And the first offer that truly shook the foundation came from Ice Cube and the Big Three League. This wasn't a sponsorship or a cameo. This was a $5 million proposal to play a limited schedule. To put that into perspective, Caitlin's rookie salary in the WNBA barely cracked 5 figures. Ice Cube was offering generational money for a fraction of the physical toll. The public reaction split instantly. Some fans begged her to take it and leave the toxicity behind. Others argued she owed something to the women's game. Caitlin ultimately turned it down, choosing loyalty over leverage. But that decision revealed something crucial. She didn't need the WNBA. The WNBA needed her. And once that reality settled in, the balance of power began to tilt. The league had never dealt with a player who brought this much attention, this much revenue, and this many options. And that uncertainty terrified the establishment. As the offseason approached, the conversation around Caitlin Clark shifted from survival to leverage. The Ice Cube offer was only the beginning. What it exposed was a financial gap so wide it could no longer be ignored. If a separate league could place millions on the table without hesitation, what did that say about how undervalued WNBA players had been for decades? That question hung in the air as the next rumor began to dominate headlines. A new league. A new structure. A direct challenge to the status quo. Unrivaled wasn't presented as a gimmick. Founded by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, it positioned itself as a serious alternative, launching in Miami during the WNBA offseason. The format alone was intriguing. Fewer players. More space. Faster pace. For someone like Caitlin Clark, whose game thrives on movement and vision, it sounded tailor-made. But the real shock came with what was reportedly offered. This wasn't just a salary. It was equity. Ownership. Creative control. A Messi-style deal that treated her like a partner, not an employee. Speculation went into overdrive. Fans imagined Caitlin free from the bruising politics of the WNBA, playing in a system built to showcase her strengths instead of punishing them. The idea of her walking into a league where she wasn't resented but celebrated was intoxicating. And the fact that Unrivaled reportedly held a wildcard spot open just for her only added fuel to the fire. They were willing to bend their entire structure around her presence. That alone sent a message the WNBA couldn't ignore. Yet, the deeper story wasn't about her leaving. It was about why she didn't need to. Caitlin already had financial security through endorsements. Nike. Gatorade. Deals that dwarfed her league salary. Money wasn't the deciding factor. Environment was. Respect was. And as the Unrivaled rumors swirled, something else happened quietly in Indiana. The Fever front office finally reacted. Months of frustration boiled over. Fans had watched Caitlin absorb contact night after night with no schematic adjustments. The offense stagnated. Games slipped away late. And the sideline body language told a story words never could. Caitlin looked frustrated. Confused. Sometimes visibly disagreeing with the direction of the team. And eventually, the organization made the move fans had been demanding. Christy Sides was fired. The hiring of Stephanie White changed everything. This wasn't just a coaching change. It was a philosophical reset. White wasn't an outsider. She was Indiana basketball royalty. A former Fever player. A championship assistant. A coach who understood both the history and the modern evolution of the game. Her success in Connecticut proved she could build structure under pressure. More importantly, she knew how to protect her players under White. The idea of Caitlin Clark being left alone to fight through traps and double teams disappears. Movement replaces stagnation. Cutting replaces standing. Defensive accountability replaces silence. For the first time, Caitlin isn't being asked to survive chaos. She's being placed at the center of a system designed to elevate her. That's when the new team narrative finally snapped into focus. Caitlin wasn't changing jerseys. She was changing environments. The Fever roster didn't suddenly transform through trades. It transformed through intention. Through structure. Through leadership that understood what it meant to have a generational player. The league expected Caitlin to adapt quietly. Instead, the organization adapted to her. With a new coach and a clearer direction, Caitlin Clark enters her second season carrying something she didn't have before. Authority. She's no longer the rookie absorbing punishment in silence. She's the centerpiece of a franchise that understands its window is now. But the pressure doesn't stop at Indiana. It ripples across the entire league. Expansion drafts. Labor negotiations. Media attention. Everything now orbits her presence. The Golden State Valkyries' arrival added another layer of anxiety. Expansion rules are tricky, and while Indiana can protect its core, the mere idea of Caitlin being discussed as a potential target speaks volumes. Teams aren't just dreaming about adding her talent. They're dreaming about her audience. Her brand. Her ability to shift gravity wherever she goes. And that reality forces Indiana's hand. Winning is no longer optional. It's mandatory. Inside the locker room, growth is already visible. The chemistry between Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston evolved dramatically by season's end. What once looked awkward became lethal. Pick and roll sharpened. Timing improved. With Stephanie White's history of developing post players, expectations are sky high. This isn't about adding talent. It's about maximizing what's already there. The same applies to Kelsey Mitchell. Early friction gave way to balance. Two scorers learning how to coexist. By season's end, they weren't competing for space. They were complementing each other. With defined roles and a modern system, the Fever backcourt becomes a problem for the entire league. Beyond the court, Caitlin's leverage reaches its peak. The players opt out of the CBA signals a looming labor fight. Better pay. Better travel. Better conditions. And the bargaining chip is obvious. Ratings exploded. Fever games saw increases north of 300%. Merchandise sales shattered expectations. Caitlin Clark didn't just move the needle. She reset it, and then there's the mental shift. The villain arc. Caitlin no longer plays the role of peacekeeper. She talks back. She stands her ground. Technical fouls replace forced smiles. This isn't arrogance. It's adaptation. She understands now that approval was never coming. So domination will have to do. The parallels to history are unavoidable. Michael Jordan didn't escape the Pistons. He evolved past them. Caitlin Clark is doing the same. The hits forged her. The chaos hardened her. And the system finally arrived to match her talent. This new team isn't about leaving. It's about becoming unstoppable. So, the verdict is clear. Caitlin Clark isn't leaving Indiana, but she's done waiting for approval, done absorbing punishment quietly, and ready to redefine power inside the league.